In this video, new data shows we've reached a tipping point in EV adoption and a tsunami of change is now inevitable. Nothing can stop it. Plus, a Tesla bull has a warning for stock investors. Plus, Mary BS Barra continues to lie, mislead, deceive, and gaslight investors in a despicable act of blatant dishonesty and deception while simultaneously sucking from the teat of the definitely not corrupt US government. We've got lots to discuss, so let's get into it. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoy these videos, there's a bunch of ways you can support the channel, access exclusive content and perks. Check out the links in the pinned comment below. If you want to take it to the next level, join thousands of members on Patreon to gain exclusive access to over 100 Q&A videos, loads of exclusive content, exclusive access to my up-to-date 10-year Tesla stock price targets, and even access my Tesla valuation model at the investor support level and above. You can also pick up some Tesla, Elon, and investment themed merch in the merch store, so check out the links in the pinned comment below, and thanks for your support. If your favorite color is red, you'll love today in the stock market. Tesla down 3.5%, $776.58 at close. Cannot believe the bargains we're being presented with. It was a sea of red everywhere today in the stock market. The Nasdaq 100 down 2%, Apple stock down almost 1%, Amazon stock down over 5%, Google's parent company Alphabet stock down over 2%, Rivian stock down 1.5%, Lucid stock down 3.5%, Nikola stock down 1/3%, and ARK's flagship innovation ETF down almost 5%. And now a Tesla bull has a warning for stock investors. We're over on Twitter. This tweet from Gary Black. Quote, "Some will use my own chart against me, arguing since the 14th of April, when Elon offered to buy Twitter, Tesla stock is down 21% versus the Nasdaq 100 down 13%. But that ignores Tesla's two blowout earnings reports, Q1 and Q2, during that span. Since the 14th of April, Tesla's 2023 EPS estimates are up 22% versus the Nasdaq 100, largely flat. We can see that in the chart here along the top, the Nasdaq 100 index in the blue. Tesla clearly underperforming by a significant margin, despite, as Gary points out, 2 epic quarters in a row and massive increases in earnings per share estimates for the full year." Gary continues, "Tesla stock should be handily outperforming the Nasdaq 100 since the 14th of April. Even beta adjusted, given 22% positive earnings revision, and this shot from the Bloomberg terminal sums things up perfectly. What we're looking at here on the left in the red, EPS estimates, consensus estimates from Wall Street for Tesla, and in white, the Tesla share price. There's a very clear correlation between EPS estimates and Tesla stock price over time. They're not always perfectly in sync, but there is definitely a clear correlation, and it is a rare time indeed when EPS estimates go vertical, as we can see has happened here. From April 2022, in red, we see a huge increase in EPS estimates and then another massive increase as well. Yet, Tesla's stock has gone in the literal opposite direction. I, like Gary Black, believe that this disconnect will not last. Heed this warning, ladies and gentlemen. If you're waiting for Tesla stock to dip, congratulations, good for you. I don't give investment advice, so I hope that works out for you. I will put this on the record, however. I suspect at some point, a few months from now, I'll be giving an update, and that white line will have actually broken through the red line. Of course, I hope I'm wrong. Still buying with every spare cent, so the cheaper I'm buying Tesla stock, the better. But I did just want to point out this extremely anomalous situation. As we can see here, EPS estimates have consistently been below Tesla's stock price, but there is a fairly strong correlation over time. And then out of absolutely nowhere, from April this year, the two have crossed over. And not just a little bit, they're going in absolute opposite directions. Don't say I didn't warn you, don't say Gary didn't warn you. And now it's time to talk about government motors. One of the world's most incredible companies led by one of the world's most competent CEOs, Mary BS Barra. We're over on the Reuters website here, quote, "US government says it lost $11.2 billion on government motors bailout." This article, 8 years old, from 2014. For those that don't know, GM went bankrupt.
Oops, oh yeah, we're dumb. We accidentally went bankrupt, but we're too big to fail. Can we have some money, please?
And yeah, US taxpayers bailed out this incompetent company to the tune of over $11 billion. But hey, that's all in the past. I don't even know why I'm showing this. It's totally irrelevant. The point I actually wanted to make, fast forward 8 years, same website on Reuters, quote, "US Energy Department set to loan government motors, battery joint venture, $2.5 billion. Yes, GM are definitely not a credit risk. You'll definitely get your money back, and US taxpayers will absolutely not be on the hook for $2.5 billion when GM inevitably goes bankrupt again later this decade." I'm stunned to see this. I mean, holy fucking shit. First, we have the corrupt president of the United States gaslighting the American public, shunning Tesla, inviting General Motors CEO Mary Barra to an EV summit where Tesla was conspicuously absent, stealing Tesla's valor, Joe Biden literally claiming that GM and Mary Barra had led the way in terms of electrification. You did it, Mary, you led and it matters. Fuck off, mate. Definitely has nothing to do with the millions of dollars the UAW, the United Auto Workers Union, of which GM employees are members, has been bribing the US government with for the last 30 years. No, really. I mean, they're political donations, not bribes. So, yeah, I don't know how this has happened, but I am pointing out now that odds of this being repaid ever? Extremely low. Speaking of government motors and Mary BS Barra, who unquestionably is one of the world's most competent CEOs and definitely hasn't been leading her company toward inevitable bankruptcy for the last few years, here's an interesting tweet from Forward Cap. Quote, Mary BS Barra last week, government motors will catch Tesla by 2025. Mary BS Barra today. Government Motors hopes to do $90 billion in EV revenue by 2030. For context, Tesla will do around $85 billion of revenue this year and about $130 billion in 2023. But remember, you did it, Mary, you led, and it matters. This is gaslighting in action. It's almost as incredible as the recent revisions on the White House website about the definition of a recession. Anyway, let's not go there. So, let's have a quick look here. CEO Mary Barra. Government Motors battery electric vehicles will outsell Tesla by 2025. Speaking about Government Motors' plan to have at least 30 battery-powered electric vehicles within the next 2.5 years, what's that about complexity and stupid people? Yeah, let's not go there either. BS Barra said, quote, what we have coming, it's in the heart of the market. Well, I'm sold. Good stuff, Mary. I believe you. I'm going to read this entire thing. It's just too good not to. This is a letter from Mary BS Barra. They made a typo. They accidentally put a T as the middle initial instead of BS. Maybe we should... Can somebody let GM know they made a typo on this letter? Anyway, quote, we have strong earnings and cash flow, selling our internal combustion engine vehicles that are soon to be extinct. An investment-grade credit rating, which is entirely undeserved. I mean, what the actual f***? It breaks my brain. It really does, okay? Some dickhead on YouTube here, not just this guy, but many people, and on Twitter, have recognized GM is a huge credit risk. Huge credit risk. Their credit rating is an absolute fucking scam. The credit rating agencies are incompetent fucking morons. They don't see this coming. This company is going bankrupt. Nobody should be lending them any money whatsoever, period, because they're not getting it back. Anyway, let's just move on. Historically low pension obligations, great vehicles and service, and record pricing. All of this will help us continue to execute our EV and AV-powered growth strategy and insulate it from short-term challenges. GM has also done something unique in the industry to help secure our future EV production. We have binding agreements securing all battery raw materials to support our plans to go bankrupt later this decade. Wait, I read that wrong. Oh no, I read that right. I just used different words. To support our plan for 1 million units of annual EV capacity in North America by 2025. Let's do some quick math here. Tesla's production capacity in the United States alone for EVs is about 650,000 units, and then Austin's coming online at the moment. This is soon going to be well in excess of 1 million, then 2 million, then 3 million. By the time Government Motors reach this target of 1 million electric vehicles per year of capacity, not actual production sales, capacity in the United States. Tesla's capacity for electric vehicles in the United States will be 3 or 4 million. But don't worry, because somehow that means GM's going to be overtaking Tesla in 2025 by achieving EV production capacity in the United States. That's about the same level of Tesla in maybe 6 or 12 months' time. Right. This is gaslighting, this is lying, this is misleading, and this is deceiving investors. It's not cool. These are commitments with strategic partners for key materials like lithium, cobalt, and nickel. This includes new multi-year agreements announced today, blah, 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 blah. Going forward, we will continue to mitigate risk and drive down costs to help us deliver $90 billion of annual EV revenue by 2030. That's 2030, by the way, not 2025. 2030. Now, I'm not a math genius here, but I think that would be approximately 1.8 million vehicles at about a $50,000 average selling price in 2030. Can someone remind me, what's Tesla's global production capacity at the moment? What was in the investor report recently? It was 1.9 million already? And Government Motors is thinking in 2030, they're going to be doing about the same amount of EV revenue as Tesla already has installed capacity for today. Yet somehow they're overtaking Tesla by 2025. As you can see from these examples, every part of the company is rising to meet today's challenges. I'm proud of the Government Motors team's determination, resilience, and agility. She said agility. Are you f***ing serious, bro? It's not just when faced with external pressures. They look for ways to move the company forward every day. Forward towards the iceberg, you mean? Thank you for your continued and misplaced confidence in the Government Motors team. Mary BS Barra, chair and incompetent CEO who should not have a job. Now here we are on the Bloomberg website. US crosses the electric car tipping point for mass adoption. Once 5% of new car sales go fully electric, everything changes, according to a Bloomberg analysis of the 19 countries that have made the EV pivot. Many people of a certain age can recall the first time they held a smartphone. Devices were weird and expensive and novel enough to draw a crowd at parties. Then, less than a decade later, it became unusual not to own one. That same society-altering shift is happening now with electric vehicles, according to a Bloomberg analysis of adoption rates around the world. The US is the latest country to pass what's become the critical EV tipping point, 5% of new car sales powered only by electricity. This threshold signals the start of mass EV adoption, the period when technological preferences rapidly flip, according to the analysis. For the past 6 months, the US joined Europe and China, collectively the 3 largest car markets. Imagine that, 3 largest car markets. And how many of those car markets does Tesla have a factory in? Oh, all of them. You'd almost think they had a strategy. If the US follows the trends established by 18 countries that came before it, a quarter of new car sales could be electric by the end of 2025. Now, I think it's probably going to be more than this, but this is actually incredibly stunning. Mainstream media analysis of EV adoption suggesting a quarter of new vehicles in the United States will be electric by 2025. 2 years ago, at best, they probably would have been expecting maybe 10%. So this is progress, but again, everyone's going to be surprised by how quickly this adoption takes place. That would be a year or 2 ahead of most major forecasts. How fast is the switch to electric cars? 19 countries have reached the 5% tipping point. Then everything changes. The chart we're looking at here, the green shows the 12-month moving average. This is for all of the countries. And then we have EV share of new vehicles. Along the bottom, we have years after crossing the 5% threshold. So give or take, it took Norway about 8 years or so, from 5% to about 85%. The 12-month moving average in green is tracking fairly closely with Norway's EV adoption. Now let's just say, hypothetically speaking, we use this 8-year marker for about 80% of EV adoption, just really rough numbers. 2022 now, right? So that would imply 2030, about 80% of all new vehicles on planet Earth being electric. That would be about on the money. There aren't any experts out there, save for the likes of Tony Seba at Rethink X, who actually expect this to take place. For some strange reason, everybody projects out in a linear fashion into the future. They don't understand exponential growth. So far, the trend is fairly clear. The 12-month moving average actually highlights this quite well. And notice the shape. This is actually an exponential increase. If you follow Norway, I know it's a little bit lumpy quarter to quarter and year to year, but the overall trend is actually an exponential curve. This is not linear. There's continued acceleration toward that 80% threshold. Why is 5% so important? Most successful new technologies, electricity, televisions, mobile phones, the internet, even LED light bulbs, follow an S-shaped adoption curve. Holy f***, stop the press. I can't believe it. I need to just get closer and make sure that I read what I think I read. A mainstream publication discussing electric vehicles has used the term S-shaped adoption curve. My God, I think they're starting to get it. Wow. This is big. You know what? This is going to get a bit meta, but the proof that we've reached a tipping point isn't the fact that we're at 5%. It's the fact that a mainstream media publication is now talking about S-curve adoption. That is the tipping point. Wow. I mean, I'm impressed. Sales move at a crawl in the early adopter phase, then surprisingly quickly once things go mainstream. The top of the S-curve represents the last holdouts who refuse to give up their old flip phones. In the case of electric vehicles, 5% seems to be the point when early adopters are overtaken by mainstream demand. Before then, sales tend to be slow and unpredictable. Afterward, rapidly accelerating demand ensues. It makes sense that countries around the world would follow similar patterns of EV adoption. Most impediments are universal. There aren't enough public chargers. For some strange reason, this company called Tesla just keeps coming up. It's almost like they've been thinking about some limiting factors to adoption and then solving them ahead of time, like building out the world's largest charging network. I must be hallucinating, right? The cars are expensive and in limited supply. So I guess the goal then, if you're a smart company, you'd be trying to drive the costs down and increase supply. It's almost like someone from Bloomberg told Tesla what they'd need to do to solve the problem for adoption, and then Tesla's been listening to Bloomberg and doing exactly that for the last 15 years. Definitely a coincidence. Buyers don't know much about them. Once the road has been paved for the first 5%, the masses soon follow. The masses always follow, not just in terms of adopting new technology. Thus, the adoption curve followed by South Korea starting in 2021 ends up looking a lot like the one taken by China in 2018, which is similar to Norway after its first 5% quarter in 2013. The next major car markets approaching the tipping point in this year include Canada, Australia, and Spain. US joins the list of big EV adopters, countries where fully electric cars make up more than 5% of new vehicles. I'm not going to read this line by line, but if you guys and girls want to pause the video and have a look, feel free. I definitely recommend it. Just want to highlight a few numbers here. I mean, Austria is already at 15%, Denmark over 17%, Iceland over 50%, Netherlands around 16%, Norway over 80%, Sweden almost 30%, United Kingdom, nearly 20%, and the United States lagging well behind, just over 5%. A higher bar for hybrids. The analysis above is for vehicles that run on batteries only. Some countries, primarily in Europe, were quicker to adopt plug-in hybrids, which are actually gasoline vehicles with a tiny battery in them, smaller than the one found in your girlfriend's vibrator. Including those, you know what? Let's not include those because one, they're stupid. B, they're going to go away as well, like ICE cars, because they're ICE cars with a tiny battery. They're mainly done for compliance reasons. So let's ignore them because they're irrelevant. The US and China mostly skipped plug-in hybrids and went straight to fully electric vehicles, a leading indicator. And the US hasn't yet crossed the 10% threshold. Behind every country that crossed an EV tipping point is a program of federal incentives and pollution standards. In the US, the Biden administration last year issued an executive order calling for EVs to make up half of new vehicles by 2030, including plug-in hybrids. What an absolute f***ing joke. Yeah, right. Half of all new vehicles, I mean, come on, bro. Even without these idiotic incentives, it's going to be closer to 80% with or without the government telling people what they must do. But including hybrids in this number, you'd almost think that the UAW has been bribing the US government. Hey, can we just make ICE vehicles and put a tiny battery in them and that'll count? We can? Here's some money? Okay, good, great. All right, we'll just do that instead. It's easier. Tipping the car makers. Continued growth also depends on the ability of automakers and their suppliers to increase production fast enough. This is fair. VW, Ford, and BMW are each targeting 50% or more of their global sales to be fully electric by the end of the decade. And as I've said, if any of these moronic companies are planning to be producing any ICE vehicles after 2030, they're as good as done. In fact, they're already as good as done. Until these companies go, we're going to aim for 100% new vehicles electric before the end of the decade, they're still asleep at the wheel. It turns out automakers have tipping points too. Factories must be retooled and supply chains reconfigured. To achieve the most cost savings, the entire vehicle must be redesigned with electrification in mind.
No Sherlock.
In Europe, once 10% of an automaker's quarterly sales go electric, the share triples in less than 2 years. Think about that. The chart below doesn't include Toyota, which is the biggest automaker that hasn't reached the 10% EV threshold in Europe. Regular viewers of the channel will understand why. Toyota's current leadership is absolutely incompetent. They still don't believe that EVs are the way of the future. They're unsure. They're pursuing lots of different propulsion methods, giving consumers choice. Won't end well. It's going to be a stunning fall from grace. Toyota's target of 3.5 million annual EV sales by 2030 as a share of its 10 million annual vehicle sales guarantees bankruptcy. Is among the least aggressive of the major automakers. The chart also doesn't include Tesla, the world's biggest EV maker, whose sales are entirely electric. What we're looking at is Europe-specific data. Once 10% of a company's European sales went electric, that figure quickly tripled. Again, the 12-month moving average speaks volumes here. From 10% to 30%, almost overnight. Is the world's transition to EVs inevitable? So far, 90% of the world's EV sales have come from the US, China, and Europe. So here's a pro tip. If you were a company that wanted to produce electric vehicles and also not go bankrupt, it'd probably be important to have factories producing electric vehicles, fully electric vehicles locally in each of those three key markets. That means countries responsible for about a third of global annual auto sales haven't passed the tipping point. None of the countries in Latin America, it'll be a very long time, Africa, likewise, or Southeast Asia has made the jump, understandably. If they do, they will, it'll just take some time. It's uncertain whether global miners will be able to keep up with the demand for battery metals. They won't. Still, global sales of electric vehicles tripled in the last 2 years according to the International Energy Agency. All of the net growth in global car sales in 2021 came from electric cars, and that's a trend that Bloomberg forecasts suggest will continue indefinitely. This year could be the high watermark for vehicles on the road without a plug. It will be, and we're just getting started. Applying the tipping point analysis to the entire globe, the share of fully electric vehicles worldwide passed the 5% threshold for the first time last year. If the trends hold true, accelerating demand can be expected. No shit, Sherlock. By the way, for the record, let's do some quick math here. 5% new vehicle sales, already electric vehicles. We've seen in Europe from 10% to 30%, couple of years max. So let's just say that 5% doubles in the next year or so to 10%, doubles again to 20%, doubles again to 40%, and then doubles one more time, 80%. Game, set, match. This will happen a lot faster than people are expecting. So let's quickly recap. It was a sea of red in the stock market again today. Tesla stock continuing to get absolutely pounded, and as Gary Black points out, this disconnect ain't gonna last. See you guys in a few months' time. Let's just leave it at that. The incompetent United States government continues to throw money at General Motors, aka Government Motors, despite the fact that it's obvious they will be bankrupt before the end of the decade. Another $2.5 billion that US taxpayers will ultimately end up on the hook for. You did it, Mary, you led, and it matters. But in all seriousness though, congratulations to Mary Barra. Quite an accomplishment to get GM a $2.5 billion loan that will never be repaid when it is clear as day that this company will not last a decade. And as we heard, we finally finally reached the EV tipping point, but more important than that, I'm truly stunned. A mainstream media publication discussing electric vehicles has talked about S-curve adoption rates. That in and of itself is enough evidence that we really have reached the tipping point. This is a big milestone. And lastly, just a quick reminder, if you don't want access to my Tesla stock price targets, please don't join Patreon with the link in the description or in the pinned comment. If you don't want access to well over 100 exclusive Q&A videos, don't join Patreon with the link in the comment. If you don't want access to dozens of other exclusive videos, loads of perks, our Discord server and more, definitely don't join Patreon with the link in the pinned comment. I'm Stephen Mark Ryan, this is Solving the Money Problem, and I love you all. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoy these videos, there's a bunch of ways you can support the channel, access exclusive content and perks, and get some free stocks and crypto. Check out the links in the pinned comment below. You can also pick up some Tesla, Elon, and investment themed merch in the merch store. If you want to take it to the next level, join thousands of members on Patreon to gain exclusive access to over 100 Q&A videos, loads of exclusive content, exclusive access to my up-to-date 10-year Tesla stock price targets, and even access my Tesla valuation model at the investor support level and above. So check out the links in the pinned comment below, and thanks for your support. And if you're still watching, you're awesome. I read every single comment on this channel and I really appreciate your feedback. So if you've got any thoughts on today's video, questions, comments, or suggestions for a new video, let me know in the comments below. Check the cards on screen now to browse the merch store, join Patreon, or watch the next video.